If you live in today's world, then you live in a world where people believe what they feel and not what they see. We live in a world where facts are treated as suggestions. We have for you today bombshell news, some of which you may have seen, some of which you have not seen, and you have not heard it like this. Propaganda goes viral faster than the truth can ever get out of the bed, where a terror group can murder your people in broad daylight, live stream the whole thing, and 3 months later, people are crying over their food shortage. Welcome to the upside down world. Today's episode is about moral clarity. It's about truth, and how truth doesn't always shout the loudest, but it always stands the tallest. It's about the lies coming out of Gaza, the so-called starvation videos being pushed by activists and influencers, some of whom honestly know that they're lying, and others, they're just sheep, all following the algorithm. And also, we're going to touch, did Candace Owens actually get evidence from the Macrons, and then she just ignored it? We're going to walk through the fakes, we're going to name the shame, and we are going to ask something that no one else wants to ask. Why is Israel expected to feed the very people who are starving their hostages? All of that and more coming up on today's episode. Let's get it. Wait, before you get back to the show, I just want to let you know that we have launched Nissim Black Store. All you have to do is go online, order yourself one of these amazing mugs, God is King, with a matching t-shirt. We have a whole plethora of different shirts that are all about representing God wherever you go. As believers in the one true God of Israel, it is our duty not to hide, not to back down, not to shy away from expressing our faith wherever it is that we go. If you want to go and walk righteously before your God with a nice t-shirt, with a nice sweater, with a mug that's reminding us constantly that God is here with us, go to nissimblack.store and make sure you get yourself some merch. It really helps support this channel and everything that we're doing and everything that we plan to do. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. I thank you all for all of your support. Okay, back to the show. Welcome back to the Nissim Black Show. I have prepared for you today a show. I want to begin with an article from the World Israel News, which is actually a news site that you can actually trust. We're discussing the $1 million topic. Is there a famine in Gaza? The UN still blames Israel for the food security in Gaza, despite confirming that 90% of aid convoys in Gaza do not reach distribution points. So the World Israel News is reporting that despite repeatedly blaming Israel for food insecurity among Gazan civilians, the United Nations has quietly admitted that more than 90% of humanitarian aid trucks entering Gaza are immediately commandeered by Hamas and other armed groups. That means that Hamas is stealing the aid. Whoa, you don't say. These terror groups routinely seize the aid pallets, stockpile the supplies in heavy guarded warehouses, and then they resell the items to civilians for an exorbitant price. And the UN official claimed that some trucks are looted by desperate civilians. However, it's unclear how unarmed individuals could forcibly stop and unload aid trucks without weapons or being part of a terror organization, meaning they don't have any weapons. How are they able to get the aid off of the trucks? How are they able to stop the workers, which in most cases, these are armed UN officials? How they're just being bum rushed by people. I mean, come on, you got to buy this. According to a recent report quietly released by the United Nations Office for Project Services, the UNOPS, it says 88% of aid trucks that entered Gaza in May never reached their intended destinations, such as the UN distribution centers. These centers, designed to ensure that food and medical supplies are delivered directly to the civilian population. These are the centers. These are them. And the situation has worsened in months. This is ever since then, since back in May. So it says in June, by the time we got to June, it was 90.7% of the 1,155 trucks allowed into Gaza failed to reach the UN distribution points. That figure rose to 94% in July, with only 66 of 1,161 trucks reaching their destinations. Now, the truth is they're not reporting it right here, but we'll show you other evidence that it's not just the fact that Hamas and whoever else is actually stealing the aid. There's a lot more going on than that, but we'll get to it. So it says the rest were reportedly intercepted and taken over by Hamas and other armed factions. So speaking to the Times of Israel, Olga Cherevko, a staffer at the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, appeared to blame Israel for the phenomenon. Of course, what else is new? So the long-standing restrictions have created an unpredictable environment where communities lose confidence that aid will reach them, she said. Yeah, because all of this is Israel's fault. Even though the UN is quietly reporting this, you're not seeing this on the news. That's intentional. There's a reason why you're not seeing this on the news. So Cherevko added that some convoys have been offloaded by starving, desperate people, though she offered no evidence that civilians without weapons could overpower the convoys. Because if you make a claim, then we want to see if the claim is actually true or not. So as we've said before, the only way to reach a level of confidence is by having a sustained flow of aid over a period of time. This was clearly evident during the weeks of the last ceasefire when such incidences did not occur, she added. Okay, so she wants to say that because the war is continuing, right? Israel is continuing with their agenda here, that this is the reason. It's not the fact that Hamas and other armed forces are actually taking the aid, right? Or other things. Now, I'm going to show you now a video of a Israeli soldier who's there. And I may even be able to follow up on another video of there are people, okay, that are there in the Gaza Strip who see this aid, right? So in addition to Hamas actually hijacking it, because they are, right? And they are selling it back to the people at a crazy price. There are people who have been there on the ground, including Steve Witkoff, including Mike Huckabee, have been there to be able to see that the UN has been lying all along. Take a look at this.
I'm here at the Kerem Shalom crossing. Behind me is approximately 600 trucks worth of aid, waiting for the UN and international organizations to come pick it up and distribute it to Gazan civilians. The aid is filled with canned goods, baby formula, feminine hygiene products, flour, and more. Let's see what happens to the aid when it waits for months on end for the UN and other organizations to come and pick it up.
Okay, so let's start with the claim that the children are actually starving there in Gaza, because that's what we need to start with. So now when people hear the word starvation, they imagine, that the swollen bellies and skeletal limbs, eyes sunken in. But then they show us a toddler, sitting in a clinic chair, pale, white skin, or wide eyes, and they say that this happened from hunger. Or they will show a young boy with sores on his body, and then they'll, say he hasn't eaten in days, or a girl coughing in a frail hospital bed, and say that, Israel is starving the children. Or you could just go all the way, as the New York Times reported last week, with a false picture of a child who was obviously sick from some genetic disease, right? This is the one they caught. There's plenty of these going out, but these are the ones that they caught. In Sudan and in Yemen, places like that where there are real famines due to real conflicts. I'm not saying that this conflict isn't real. I'm just saying that over there, you're talking about a lot more people dying. You're talking about a much bigger war, much bigger starvation and famine. They've been even using pictures from these other conflicts in the Middle East, resending them and reposting them, even pictures from years ago. I'm talking about you are seeing propaganda at its finest. So when you see all of these pictures, except we've seen the actual reports from the medical professionals, not activists. In those cases, they've been attributed to viral infections, parasitic illnesses. There's all different type of reasons why these kids are sick. Genetic diseases. Some of these kids are suffering from war trauma. but they're not starving. They're actually sick. But that doesn't make a good headline. So because it doesn't make a good headline, you are left with the propaganda because there's an overall narrative that they are trying to shape out. So there's a reason why these videos often show no medical charts. Notice this. I want you to notice this. I want you to think for yourselves today. No medical charts, no doctors speaking on this, no timestamps, just emotionally charged images. They'll put a piano score behind it. They'll use captions saying Israel is starving children. This is not journalism. This is trauma sold for clout. That's what this is. And worse, is being shared by celebrities and influencers, and yes, even politicians. They want you to cry, but they don't want you to think. So together, we are going to think today. We are going to think.
My name is Dr. Rinat Green. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a mother of children with dyslexia and the founder and executive director of Colare, a nonprofit organization that supports children struggling with dyslexia and other language-based learning disabilities. I started Colare about 12 years ago after making Aliyah and realizing that children with dyslexia fall through the cracks in the educational system.
There's a war of kids who have challenges with their learning, dyslexia, and different things, and they're also on the front line. These are kids that are already falling through the cracks, and the war has only made it worse. There's not a lot of organizations that are out there on the front line like Colare.
Before my son came to Colare, he would sit in a classroom. He wouldn't understand anything in English and in Hebrew. His friends were progressing around him. They were reading books. He used to just sit there daydreaming and struggling. And he came home and he used to say he hates school and he doesn't want to go, and he used to fight learning. And since Colare, he's realized that he can learn.
I've been here, part of this learning center for about 7 years, and I've been feeling the impact. We work with kids countrywide. Whatever kids feel about themselves as learners, they really feel about themselves as members of the community.
So I'm imploring you all, my audience, to help Colare. Please help this organization continue to do their holy work. So let's talk about the actual food crisis, what's really going on. Because yes, there is one, but not for the reasons that they are telling you. You see, every single day, Israel's allowing for food to go into Gaza. And they're even sending food and medical aid to Gaza. There's no reason for there to be anybody starving in Gaza. There's been enough food, they say, that could feed Gaza Strip for the next several years. So Hamas is taking it. They're still holding our hostages, Israeli hostages. And rockets are still being fired from Gaza, while the terrorists still roam the tunnels. This is what the actual picture of what's going on in Gaza. And there is, all the while this is happening, I know they're saying 70% of Gaza has not been destroyed, by the way. So that's a false number. You'll see other people touting it, Pierce Morgan and others. It has not been that 70% has been destroyed. There has been, 70% of some damage to some degree, but not destroyed. So to say that Gaza's been completely destroyed, you could see, other Arab influencers going throughout Gaza, showing the beauty of what's going on. Current events, current right now, where there's parts of Gaza that are not impacted by the war. So don't believe everything that you see on TV, because that's all that they're showing you. So even with all these things that's going on, Israel's still sending in the aid. They're still sending in the food, convoys, trucks, flour, medicine, baby formula. All of it's going in. And the IDF has even coordinated ceasefires to allow the trucks to go through safely. The question is, where's it all going? We have videos, undeniable, time-stamped footage of Hamas stealing aid from the people, hijacking trucks. There's armed men pulling boxes from the UN trucks, aid workers. There's either footage or there's photos. You take your pick, but there's plenty of it out there.
الله حيهم الرجال الله حيهم
Allah hayhom. Aid workers are begging for protection. Gazans are yelling that their own leadership is starving them. They are saying it. But somehow, none of this is making it to your algorithm. It's not viral. And the question is, why is that happening? It's because it does not fit the narrative. It does not fit the story. So let's be clear about this. Hamas does not want peace. And prior to this war, I'm going to be very honest with you. You have to remember this. I think we're maybe 6-7 months into this war. Already from the beginning, Hamas was being obliterated. All the while this war is going, it was actually being reported in even other areas, from Nablus to Ramallah to, other areas of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, that the support for Hamas had risen all the way up to maybe 80% amongst Palestinians. That's nationwide here. So until recently, you weren't hearing anything about even Gazans or Palestinians wanting peace at all. You just didn't hear it. So let's be clear about that. They do not want peace. And they don't want the food either, because they only want it to feed their fighters, but they definitely don't want it for the people. They don't want the medicine unless it heals their commanders. So every time aid comes in, Hamas decides who eats it. And spoiler alert, it's not the poor people. They are selling this stuff on the black market. You are being lied to. They take what they want, and if a Gazan civilian complains, they're either hurt or they disappear. We've seen it. There are eyewitnesses. These are the things you actually can see, right? The rest of these other things you cannot actually see. Aid groups are trying to deliver food under UN supervision, and they get raided. So how can you claim a humanitarian crisis while you are the ones hijacking the humanitarian aid? You understand this? All of this propaganda is coming from the same place. You have to ask yourself this, because these are the same people that no matter what they do, it's right. I want to put that out there for you. No matter what these people do, it's right. They show you even false, easily debunkable videos and pictures, photographs of children starving, children hurt. They send this out, this propaganda. And then they send out videos of our hostages that they are starving. They are actually starving them. And it doesn't matter which video they send, the world acts as if they are right. Israel's wrong. It's Israel's fault. Not even thinking that if they wouldn't have took the hostages, they wouldn't be there in the first place. So even if you're going to point the finger and say, Israel, look at what you're doing, how could you? You're starving your own hostages. Let's be real. There are pictures, videos of Hamas commanders and armies eating bananas, stuffing their mouths, eating the aid. They're already sending these videos. They can send that. They can send the hostage, and whatever they do, they're right. Double standard is not what we would even call this anymore. This is an intentional degradation of the Jewish state, of the Jewish people. This is a narrative that people have been trying to push, and unfortunately, this propaganda is actually winning. In order to try to alienate the Jewish people, you have to ask this for yourself. Who steals from their own people during a war and they still get international sympathy? What I'm telling you is this is not things that you have to search for. You can look at this for yourself. These people are stealing the aid themselves. It's been videoed, it's documented. There's real evidence of this. And they're starving the Israeli hostages, and they still get international sympathy from everyone. Who gets that? Only a terrorist group that's backed by an international public relations machine. Let's flip this on its head. Let's ask the real moral question that nobody dares to ask. Who feeds their enemies during a war? Only Israel. There's a recent report, I wish I had it in front of me, that I saw just the other day, where they said there's no report of this ever in war history where you have two opposing forces engaged in a war and the opponent is feeding the other side. Only Israel's doing this. Gaza is there. Hamas is there in Gaza. They're not feeding our hostages, and they're documenting it and sending it to us. Look at how Eli Sharabi looked when he came home. And when he came home too. Hashem Yirachem. God have mercy. Who doesn't feed the innocent hostages that they kidnapped? People that had nothing to do with anything. Hamas does this. And we have eyewitness accounts. We've heard from the few hostages who actually have survived. They were underfed, they were beaten, held in darkness, in tunnels. Some children, they came back malnourished. So again, who is the moral actor here? How can the world have any opinion about morality here when you are allowing this death cult to get away with bloody murder? And they will tell on themselves. This is what I'm telling you. This is why it's the craziest thing in the world. They are telling on themselves and they get away with it. Israel is sending in food while their own people are hungry. And we're the immoral ones. This is the absolute attribute of God himself. Meaning there's a book in Jewish ethics called the Tomer Devorah, the Rose of Deborah. Now inside of it, as it discusses these 13 attributes of mercy from God, one of the characteristics that come from God that is absolutely amazing, that anybody can agree, whatever religion, is about the mercy of God. And the whole entire book is trying to get us to go in this way of acquiring these traits of godliness, of God's mercy. And one of the things that it says specifically, talking about mankind and how we should be merciful to others, is that God himself not only allows for man to sin against him, the very breath that they're breathing, the very life force, the beating of the heart, the flowing of the blood through the veins is being supplied by God at the time that the person is sinning against them. This is a godly trait, which only could be that the world has warped and become so immoral that it can't tell what morality is anymore. It is completely flipped upside down. Think about this. Israel is sending in food while their own hostages are going hungry. We know they're not feeding our hostages because they're documenting it and showing us. And from the same press, we're getting videos of Hamas commanders in tunnels eating. Hamas is hoarding all of the food and they're starving the Jewish hostages. Even the children. They're doing everything they can to keep this war going. And they will even starve their own children just to keep a war going. This is not a hard question. We are living in an upside down world. Now let's talk about war in general, because yes, innocent people do die in war. That's the tragic truth. That's a reality of warfare, is that innocent people will die. And God forbid, we wish that it didn't happen that way, but it does happen that way. But there's a few different questions that a person has to ask themselves. First off is, what qualifies as an innocent person? Because I would see if it was only Hamas or other armed groups that were holding hostages. But this also happened among civilians. Let's not forget what happened on October 7th, 2023, that it was not only Hamas militants that came into the villages, into the cities of Israel, of southern Israel, but it was also civilians, maybe innocent ones, who stormed in, who beat hostages, in some cases beat them to death as they were brought back in to Gaza. So the first question is, we have to ask, first off, what does it mean to be innocent? Especially when, like we just said, several months into this war already, more than 80% of Palestinians nationwide were in support of Hamas and the attacks that they committed on October 7th. And there's another question that we would have to ask ourselves. Number two is, isn't there a moral difference between collateral damage and intentional murder? I mean, when Israel drops bombs, it's generally on Hamas's headquarters, a tunnel, a weapons depot. There's so much evidence of this. And even then, they drop leaflets, they make phone calls, they send text alerts to evacuate. Other countries have admitted themselves that they do not, there's been no other country that fights wars like this, that gives out evacuation notices before they strike, taking away the element of surprise to the enemies. There's a double standard. There's these people that think they have the moral high ground, when in all actuality it's just plain evil and one-sided. When Hamas fires rockets, it doesn't care. It's aimed at civilians. There's no warning, no restraint, none of that. One side regrets any civilian casualties, which is the Israeli side. The other side relies on them, not only on the Israeli side, but on their own. You were talking about the epitome of evil. And if you're comparing the two and saying that there's some type of moral equivalency between the two, then you've lost the ability already to think straight. I'm telling you, you are off. And if you say that both sides are bad, you're for sure blind. This isn't a war of equals. This is a war between a nation trying to survive, fighting for its survival, and a death cult that hides behind babies and screams when those babies get hurt and make videos out of it. Wait, I want to ask you, do you ever feel like you're alone? Maybe you live in a community, maybe you live outside the community, and maybe you're going through things that it's very hard for you to discuss with the people that are within your community. I mean, we all struggle from time to time with faith, with our belief in God, with our struggle and our walk, and ups and downs, anxiety, depression, mental health, whatever it is, we all have struggles sometimes, and we need somebody to talk to. So today is probably going to be your lucky day. The wait is officially over. Glory Nation is here today on the 21st anniversary of my wife and I walking this journey together. We are opening up the doors to something special. This online community hosted by Nas.io is a place where we go deep in faith, prayer, and personal growth. You'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes content, first listens before anything ever drops. We have Zoom hangouts with me, release parties, classes, merch drops, discounts on all of it. Whether you're walking strong or struggling to stand, Glory Nation is your home to grow. Join now. I can't wait to connect with all of you on a whole new level. Let's build this together. Glory Nation is live. So click on the link in my profile to join, or go to glory-nation.com Click join now and let's change the world together, beginning with ourselves. Now moving on to world news. It is being reported that France is leading the way to recognizing a Palestinian state. Nobody knows, by the way, where the state is actually supposed to be taking place, but this is what they are saying. Obviously, Israel is not taking very nicely to this. They're not excited about it. Trump doesn't seem to be so excited about it as well. UK, other countries are now joining in on this. And this is what Israel has to say about it.
Rewarding Hamas by recognizing a Palestinian state in light of October 7th will not bring stability, coexistence and cooperation. It will bring more murder of Israelis and Jews. If you wish for that, if you wish what you call a Palestinian state, put it up in London, in Paris, in your countries, which become more and more similar to the Middle East. The so-called peace that some European countries advocate for will only result in more war.
So let's talk about this. I mean, this so-called, international community, what they are doing right now is completely atrocious. France is a country that it can't even manage its own streets anymore. It's worried about what's going on in Palestine. It cannot manage its own streets anymore. They are pushing to recognize a Palestinian state right in the middle of this war, while Hamas still holds hostages. That's not a requirement for the state, for them to give back the hostages. Rockets are still flying. And they haven't even accepted Israel's right to exist. So what incentives, what are they supposed to give? What did they do to earn? You are enabling all terror groups everywhere to continue this type of behavior. Because in the end, you're rewarding them from it. And I hope that the most people that I've heard say this, that I do believe in the right for a Palestinian state somewhere in Europe. I mean, because Europe's almost all Arab anyway. They will colonize that and they will be taking it over very, very soon. They want to give them a state? That's like a awkward, it's like giving a drunk person a new car. Let's give a drunk, you get pulled over for driving under the influence, and your reward is we're going to give you a new car. Like these are this body still on the road from everybody he rolled over. And instead of taking them to jail, instead of justice being served, what we'll do is we'll give them a brand new car. Unfortunately, it just does not stop there. Saudi Arabia, a nation that on the surface pretends to want peace, is quietly negotiating recognition of this Palestinian state that nobody knows where it's going to be. I mean, are they going to change? This is my question. Are they going to change all of that? Which territory is it? I mean, are they changing the globes in these countries? Is it going to say Palestine instead of Israel? Which territories are considered Palestine? I mean, the whole thing is preposterous. The whole thing doesn't make sense. But only if Israel gives up Jerusalem. That's what the Saudis are saying. They need to give up Jerusalem. They need to make concessions, territory, and essentially they need to surrender its security. That's what they're asking for. So let's ask the obvious for all these countries. Why are these countries that claim to support peace rewarding terror? Why are people who claim to love human rights promoting the statehood of a regime that uses children as its human shields? The whole thing is backwards. This bothers me so much because people pretend to have morals. And this brings me to the real truth of what the matter is. There is a lack of godliness The lawlessness of the world, the cesspool of debauchery and lust and the vilification of that which is good has crept into every corner of the earth. We are literally living, I think, in a time like right before the flood, where it is very scarce to find people who actually love and fear God in this generation. This isn't a matter. I've seen many people talk about what the algorithms are pushing on, and I'm sure there's truth to that. I'm sure that there's truth to, if I was to actually log into, my socials, that I'm going to get a different feed than somebody who has an opposing view, or someone else who's primarily dealing with, sports, basketball. But I believe that part of it. But the other truth is that when there's evidence, when there's truth that's being shown right in front of your face, and you still don't accept it, you still ignore it, it's very clear that there's a narrative being pushed here. And ultimately, what I believe is happening right now, there is a war against God. That's what all of this represents. It appears to be that the whole world right now, or by and large, most of it, seems to be against Israel, but they're not against Israel. They're against God. As Trump said to the American people, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. I'm telling you right now, they're not after us, Israel. They are after God. We are just in the way. You want to talk about misplaced priorities? This is it. They're worrying about recognizing a Palestinian state. There's hunger. There's all these other things. What is recognizing the Palestinian state going to do to the current conflict? They've become more and more invested in the appearance of having a resolution than the reality of actual peace. It's backwards. They're more invested in the press releases than the progress. That's exactly what this is. And please don't get it twisted. They know who Hamas is. They've seen the beheadings, they've seen the rape, the kidnappings. But their ambition, their toil, their oil deals, their need to appease these radicals is so much louder than the moral compass. It's so much louder. And they want to look good, but they don't want to do good. Hey, what's going on? I had to stop you for a second because I want to tell you, if you like what you're hearing and if you're getting value from what you're hearing, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us get this out there. And ultimately, you know what we're trying to do? Spread the name of God all throughout the world. So like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that anytime I put out a video, you are going to be informed first. I want to come back to this, but I do want to address what's going on in the news with Candace Owens. As many of you know, she is been hit with a fat lawsuit. And I think at the beginning, I will tell you honestly, I was not really 100% following everything that was going on with the Macron. There's a few different issues that I had during this whole entire thing. Apart from the fact that the lady's just crazy anti-Semitic and outside of her mind, and she's possessed by demons, and she's gonna have to Harlem shake them demons out of her. The truth of the matter is this. Is that, for those of you who have been following along and going with Candace Owens with all of this, the woman has a track record of being a liar. I think it was one of the influencers. I shared this video a long time ago on a podcast that happened previously, where I want to say is What Do You Meme, who's a Christian influencer, actually called her out in her video that her documentary that she did on Black Lives Matter, where Candace showed a specific testimony inside of the courtroom concerning George Floyd and obviously, the cop who killed him. And the discussion was around whether or not the knee was on the neck or on the head or the shoulder of the individual, right? What Candace put inside of her documentary, and you have to go see this actually, what she put inside of her documentary was only she cut the testimony up until where it sounded as if it was emphatically that the knee was on the shoulder and not on the neck of George Floyd. And I don't care where you stand on the actual issue because that's irrelevant for me. I'm against Black Lives Matter, and I do think George Floyd was not a good human being and nothing to write home about. I'm just being honest about it. I know he was a brother, but he was a brother that was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. Doesn't mean he deserved to die in that type of way, but he probably definitely didn't deserve to be out in a free society according to his track record. But apart from that, just going back to how this individual died and the way that it was reported from Candace Owens. This "what do you mean" page or whatever, he played the whole entire clip. And what actually came out was the fact that the knee was on the neck until the police arrived and he moved it from the neck to the shoulder.
Take a look at this clip from her documentary.
Would you agree that from the perspective of Officer King's body camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee was more on Mr. Floyd's shoulder blade?
Yes.
So Candace tried to argue that Chauvin's knee was not on Floyd's neck, but on his shoulder blade. However, she didn't include the rest of the cross-examination, which revealed a much different story.
At that moment in time, that the knee of the defendant was more towards the shoulder blade, is that right?
That is correct.
That was at a time where the ambulance had already arrived?
Yes.
Very shortly before they loaded Mr. Floyd onto the gurney?
That is correct.
And so the knee of the defendant was on Mr. Floyd's neck up until the time you just pointed out?
Yes. When I viewed that video portion, that is the first time that I'd seen the knee of the defendant on the shoulder blade area.
There was a reason why Candace didn't put that in there. So I'm talking about, you have a woman who has a track record of lying. There's been many things on this investigation that she started saying that she felt was emphatically true and she was going to get to the bottom of it. And then for some reason, they just never came up again. And the reason why that probably happened is because there are reports coming out that they sent her every single piece of evidence that she wanted to know. Pictures. Pictures right now are surfacing on the internet. Other influencers are showing them of Macron as a little girl, or Bridget, whatever her first name, last name was at the time, showing her as a little girl, showing her with her children, or in her early years. And they said that this evidence was given to Candace and she ignored it. And she continued to perpetuate the story and the narrative that she was actually, I'm just saying this is what is allegedly happening here. So it looks like she may be in some trouble, which rightfully so. Again, I will say it for every single one of you. The good book says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. I will tell you I hope it doesn't happen, but it look like this is where we're headed, at least with Mrs. Owens. She will end up in the museum of the many anti-Semites who came from yesteryear and many generations before. Those who felt some way or attempted, and in her case, because of her reach that she has, she's inciting violence, and she is putting out vile, horrible things that are being used as fuel against not only the state of Israel, if it was only that, but Jewish people everywhere. So no doubt about it, for me, she's got a place in hell without a bed. So we'll watch and see what happens. Whether Mrs. Macron is a man or not a man, I mean, if she would have at least spent some time on the fact that, pedophile, maybe, you know what I'm saying? But she didn't. She wanted to go at this. And it looks like from what's going on here that her days are numbered, and we'll see what happens in court. But this is just a lesson for all. Like I said, this is all alleged. You should know that if you continue to perpetuate, and it's just showing something about this woman's character, how much she doesn't care, how she's doing everything she's doing from clout and she can't be trusted. The lack of loyalty that she's shown to, the many Jews who have helped her career. Her career, apart from the boost that she got from Donald Trump, which is another thing I even have to talk about. This call that she said that took place with Donald Trump, like that goes to show the lack of loyalty and the lack of, at least the narcissism of the person, to publicize a private conversation between yourself and the president of the United States, to publicize that, and to talk about a private conversation that took place between you and him, and to put it on public air and public display for what? Nothing other than your own self-aggrandizement. You want to show the world that, you're getting calls and you're stopping peace between Russia and Ukraine. And you guys still listening to her. I unfortunately, I'm going to tell you, sooner or later, you've seen it. What else is interesting right now in the light of her anti-Semitism and her Jew hate and the disgusting things that's coming out of her mouth, a very, very close friend and business partner of hers, who I actually happen to be a friend with, Officer Tatum, would seem to be, I don't know. I'm just looking at this footage and I'm telling you, it seems to be that he is going directly against her. Now, for those who don't know, who have not, heard my previous podcast on Candace Owens, where I actually discussed the reason why she came to her beliefs, her converting to Catholicism, and not just Catholicism, it's the traditionalism, SSPX, ideologies that she later on took on after she converted, which they hold that the Second Vatican Council is not to be accepted, and that the Pope after Pope Pius XII is no longer accepted. So because she went the traditionalist route, she has these beliefs. Officer Tatum, on the other hand, is what you would say a righteous Gentile, in the sense that he is, not only is he a Christian, but from my understanding, he is a Unitarian. But not only is he a Unitarian, he is a firm Bible believer. And it would seem to be, and I don't want to put no riffs where there ain't no riffs. I don't know if he's going to come out and say something. I don't know if he's going to tell me personally. Whatever the case is, maybe they're cool. But I'm just telling you, based on what she said and looking at these videos juxtaposed right next to each other, it would appear to be that he's answering her without saying it. Check it out.
I would literally rather saw off my own foot than support Israel ever again, by the way. Never supporting that demonic nation ever again. That's like, I am so off that train. It's crazy. I've learned way too much. You delivered in every way that you are supposed to deliver by just going full mask down.
It just sparks me every time. What is it that got people going loony about Israel? A little country that's the size of New Jersey got people losing their entire mind and willing to forego every integral thought that they've ever had, willing to turn on everything they ever believed to find a way to hate this little bitty state of people. I just don't get it. And it makes me believe it's spiritual. We look at the war in Gaza. No one would bat an eye if a militant terrorist group came to America and did what they did in Israel. And we came down and whooped the socks off of them. Literally, the world after 9/11, we went into a 20-year war, killing hundreds of thousands of civilian people. And you know what? I hate that they had to die, But when you come in our country and kill our innocent citizens, I don't know what to tell you, bruh. That's on you.
Okay, as I said, I don't really know what's going on, if there's a real rift in that relationship or not. It appears to me that eventually there may be. I mean, just at some point, and I know this, and I will say to B. Tatum directly also, I have a lot of friends that I love dearly. And if you're one of my friends from my childhood, I want you to hear this. There was a very, very short list of people that reached out to me after October 7th. A very, very short list of people that I grew up with. People that I would have called my brothers or my sisters, cousins, family, who I have seen that social, from a social standpoint, they have decided to side with the other side. Even on that short list of people that did reach out to me. I'm from Seattle, so it's as left as you could go geographically and politically, right? Even from the short list of people that actually did reach out to me, they hold the opposite opinion. They probably pro Hamas, pro all this other nonsense. However, they still reached out to me because the love was real. Now, that doesn't mean that we talk every day. Doesn't mean that we are going to be best friends. Because what I stand on, the principle of what I stand on and why I stand on it is because of my belief in God. Because of my belief in the Torah, the Bible, the Word of God, the living Word of God. That without a shadow of a doubt speaks with so much love, admiration, speaks about the rejuvenation. Even in God's rebuke of the nation, you will not find a book of prophecy that does not end with hope and with promise and restoration. That same God, my allegiance is to that God before it is to my friends. And so the ones who did not reach out to me, I don't know if we consider ourselves friends today. I don't know if we can consider ourselves that. And that's just me honestly speaking. So in this particular instance, talking about this situation is I think a point comes where it's high and by, and maybe they're already at that point. But once a person has taken a stance against God, has made themselves an enemy against God, we don't have that much to share. We don't have that much in common. And we don't have what to talk about. So I don't know where this stands between the two, but it definitely seems as if there is a reply to some of the rigorous nonsense that's been coming out of her mouth. So returning to Gaza, returning to this conflict that's going on here in Israel, I want to zoom out a little bit because the truth is this. This episode of life that we're dealing with, and this episode, this podcast episode even, isn't just about Gaza. It's about how we as a society have lost the ability to think. We're no longer allowed to ask questions. We're just expected to repost whatever the trending narrative is, to cry on cue, wave a flag, say free Palestine or else. If you show a video of a Hamas person stealing aid, like we've shown, you're silenced. If you quote a hostage describing their abuse, then you're blocked. If you ask if Hamas might actually be the problem, you're labeled as a fascist. This is not activism anymore. This is mind control. This is the same thing as the cancel culture that we thought we were getting out of with this past election. But it seems to just shift from the left to the right and back and forth. The truth is, and the scary part of it is that it's working. Even religious people, people that will call themselves religious, people of faith, who should know better than this, are falling into the trap. And they think they're standing against, that they're standing against Israel is a compassion. But it's compassion without truth. And if it's compassion without truth, then it's a lie. It's spiritual rot just covered in emotional perfume. That's what it is. And you cannot think critically if you cannot ask who's behind the camera, right? If who's editing the footage, who's sharing it, and who benefits. That's another thing. I seen from Officer Tatum the other day. He made a great point. There's a TikToker, these influencers, not influencers, whatever the case is, a camera that is always there right when there's an explosion. Whenever there's an explosion, the camera's right there, tripod, whatever the case is. And a lot of it you can tell is AI, but people are still sharing this stuff. They're going for it. There's Hollywood going on. A lot of these videos of kids hurt and traumatized and whatever. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, to tell you that Santa Claus isn't real. But it's fake news. You're being hoodwinked, bamboozled, over and over and over again. Some of it is intentional, but you are definitely being hoodwinked. And I'm telling you this, it's most of the time. The overwhelming majority of the videos that you see are fake, staged, Hollywood as they call it. So if you think you're woke, you're not awake. You're just emotionally manipulated by these people. And you follow your prophet, the algorithm. So let's go back to the basics. When it comes to this war, we have seen that Hamas fighters gleefully record the murder of entire families. They recorded it themselves. The paragliders, they were streamed as they went in and committed a massacre at a festival in real time. There are Palestinian civilians cheering in the streets, beating Israeli hostages, and they are prodding around with them like trophies. These are all the things that we actually did see. And what does the world do? They blame the victim, as they always do. Israel's held to an impossible moral standard. Hamas is treated like the underdog. And it's disgusting. Piers Morgan was recently on the Trigonometry podcast, and he was asked about why his support for the Jewish state has shifted. I want you to hear what he said.
Because I think what's going on now in Gaza is utterly unconscionable. I think it has nothing to do with the original war aims that they stated, which were to get the hostages back and to eliminate Hamas. Neither of those things have happened. Neither of those things are looking likely to happen. What is happening? Gaza is being completely destroyed. I mean, 70% has already been destroyed. The population has been crammed into various small areas now. And even as they queue for food on a daily basis, they're getting shot dead. And the IDF, every time, is 20, 30, 40 people queuing desperately for food. All they say is, A, we're giving them loads of food. So why are thousands of people stampeding for food if they're so overfed? And secondly, they say, well, we just fired warning shots. We had a couple of people threaten us. We've launched an inquiry. We're doing an investigation. It's a familiar pattern. I got all the answers to all of these incidents at the aid queues, and it was very damning when I read it out to one of the pro-Israeli guests I had.
So there's many things wrong with what Pierce is saying, for the simple fact that he all obviously is biting the Kool-Aid. Another thing is, where's all the video evidence of these things? What I'm saying is that they are so good at documenting. I want you to think about this. If Hamas and these Palestinians, the Gazans, whoever they are, reporters, are so good at documenting all the explosions, right? I want you to notice how this mirrors exactly what we saw when Black Lives Matter, when we only saw the end of the videos, right? The brutal beatdown of black people going on, but we only saw the end of the videos. I want you to notice that. We're always only seeing the end of the videos. So he's falling for this. And then on top of that, to ask such a silly question, why are Israelis not defending? Look, Pierce, think about this. Why don't you have video evidence? If everybody's saying Israelis are just gunning down the civilians, Hamas has no problem showing you murder that either they've committed or that the Israelis commit.
I think that you should believe people when they say what their intent is. Smotrich in the Israeli government, incredibly far right, along with Ben-Gvir. And I think Netanyahu's gone this way too. He's been influenced by them in a very, very damaging way. I think that he said about 3 weeks ago that the plan was to cleanse Gaza of all Palestinians, right? That's clearly what they're trying to do now.
You see that there? You see right there. This is exactly what I'm saying. I want you to listen to what Pierce just said. He says, when people tell you what their intentions are, you should believe them. Gaza and Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, Iran, many of the regimes here, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, have been saying for years, not only to Israel, but to the West, to the UK, to the United States. They have told us very clearly what their intentions were. Pierce, why don't you believe them? And unfortunately, this is an uncomfortable truth for people. That is the overwhelming majority of the Gazan people. They have let us know what their intention was. That was to commit several October 7ths over and over and over again. The same people who paraded through the streets, passing out candy, not only when every, terrorist attack is announced here in Israel, but also when 9/11 happened. This is what we're talking about. Yes, so Pierce, you're right. When people tell you what their intentions are, you should believe them. So I want to fast forward to another part of the clip, and I'm going to let Pierce say it for himself. Go ahead, listen.
I don't know how many Hamas are left. I mean, the American intelligence says for every one they're killing, there are 5 more coming through with the same ideology. How could it not be that? I mean, given the scale of carnage in Gaza right now, how do they think Israel, the government, not the people, but how does the Israeli government think this is going to make anything safer for Israelis? It's not. Is it going to make life safer for Jews around the world? It's not. It's going to make it more dangerous.
So I want you to pay attention again to what he just said. You're saying that this war, this operation, whatever it is not only a potential threat. He's talking about in the future from what's going on, because they're able to easily replace soldiers, and we're seeing what's going on. Israel's losing support all over the world. Whatever the case is, Jews are endangered all over the world already. But he's talking about in the future. If this continues, how could it not? He's saying, how could it not? Let me tell you how it could not. Listen to yourself, Pierce. We're going back to some critical thinking. I'm bringing you guys all the way back. This war, this operation, whatever it is, could potentially threaten Israelis in the future and Jewish people all over the world, says Pierce. Why? Let's just pretend that it's tit for tat. Let's pretend as if, there are equal war crimes, which there's not. But let's pretend that this is actually true. What you're actually doing, Pierce, is you are admitting to the nature of these individuals. Because I asked you this question. After the aggressive pogroms that the Russians did to the Jews, were they going to be at a future scare for their life? Was it going to be potentially dangerous for Russians all over the world because of what they did to the Jews? How about the Germans? Did Germans become more endangered, not only there, but all over the world because of what they did to the Jews? I'm trying to point out something to you. We're talking about nature. nature of this group and nature of this ideology. So you are admitting that the nature of these individuals, i.e. Palestinians or Arabs, and all of those who support them worldwide are so violent that this war can be the catalyst for future attacks against the Jewish people as a whole, collectively, all around the world. How could it not, Pierce says? How could it not lead to that? I'm telling you, Pierce, it depends on the people. It depends on the people. They will not suffer defeat, and there's nothing courageous or good or great about that. And for sure, the response to it isn't one of cowardness, where you allow things to go on because you're afraid about what they're going to do in the future. That's one thing. But what you're admitting is the nature of the people, because guess what? Jews have been persecuted all throughout the millennia with no impending danger to the ones who were doing it, because that's not the nature of the people. The nature of the Jews versus the Arab nature, even in similar societies, it ain't the same. The reason why, and this is one of the biggest reasons why the narrative is being pushed the way that it is, let alone there's, I don't know how many more millions of Arabs there are in the world than there are of Jews. It's because with us, it's not that we're just being held to a moral standard, a higher moral standard. And it's not only because of anti-Semitism. It's because they know the nature of a Jew is actually kindness. And therefore, they know they could get away with it. They know that they could get away with smashing and throwing our name into the mud. And this is why many influencers have said that the moment that they take a stance against the Palestinians, they receive death threats over and over again. And not the case when it's against the Jews in Israel. We're not sending death threats to people because they disagree with our ideology. But Islamists, jihadists, and Arabs that come from those factions, they will, and they do. Why don't Arabs have to be on alert after committing October 7th and other terror? Pierce did not say after October 7th. This is what he didn't say. He didn't say, oh my goodness, this endangers Palestinian Arabs all over the world. Not only in Israel, but all over the world after they committed this. Why didn't he say that? Because he knows our nature. So you are admitting who the true aggressor in this conflict actually is. These people are demanding ceasefires from the people who were attacked. They're demanding statehood from the people who refused. They refused to build a state. And from all of this, you're demanding justice only for the terrorist? For the terrorist? And meanwhile, Israeli children in Sderot and Ashkelon, they still sleep in bomb shelters. They still fear the sirens. We're feeling them even in Beit Shemesh. I'm waking up to sirens. There's many kids in the South that are still mourning their classmates who never came home. But none of this goes viral. Because to the world, Israeli pain is just, it's inconvenient. Doesn't make great news. So going back to all of these fake videos of Hollywood of what's a famine, if there's not a famine, if there is a famine, it's on Hamas and on the UN, who are not doing their part to make sure that the humanitarian aid is getting out there because it doesn't promote the propaganda campaign that they are putting out there. This is a lack of godliness, people. This is what we are dealing with today. This is humanity turning its back on God. And this ain't even conspiracy. You could go see this. You could see this. Why are all these videos being made in the first place? You know, like, how you charging your phone? How come in all these videos, like, with the kids, how come all the parents are fat? Somebody ain't feeding somebody, but it ain't Israel. It's because these people know the power of sympathy. They know that most people scroll and they're not going to look this stuff up. They know people are not going to do any type of research on this, so they push it down our throats. And most people just react and they don't reflect about it. They want your heart, people. They don't want your mind. So they will show you things that will immediately make you emotional, but not make you think. But what do all these fake videos actually reveal? They reveal the truth that isn't on their side. Because if you need to fake a famine, stage injuries, script a child's sobbing, like who would record that? What compassionate parent wouldn't take and embrace their child instead of pulling out a phone, showing the child crying? Truth does not need a PR team, but lies, they need lighting, they need music, they need captions, sob stories, a TikTok strategy. This is not war journalism. This is a war theater, is what we're dealing with. And the actors that we are seeing are all playing you. You are being played. So all of those who call themselves anti-war activists, saying that they want peace, I want you to notice something about them. They've never protested, at least in front of the Hamas offices. They never march against the Hezbollah rockets that are going on. They never chant against Iran's nuclear program. They only ever demand that Israel stops fighting back. And let me tell you something. That is not anti-war. That's anti-self-defense. That's not being a peacemaker. You are telling Israel to surrender. These are the same people that said that silence is violence, but now they're silent when Jews are raped or beheaded. The same people who say you should believe the victims, but they doubt all the hostages. The same people that are screaming, no justice, no peace, but they only want justice and peace for one side. And their peace leaves Jews dead. So let me say it clearly, you are not anti-war. If you side with terrorists, you are not a compassionate person. If you ignore all of those who started the war in the first place, you're not a moral person if you demand Israel to die quietly just to keep your social feed clean. That's not justice. That's suicide with a hashtag. So let's close this out as King Solomon would. There's a very old Jewish teaching from the Talmud. I want you to all think about this very, very carefully. And these are my closing words. We have a teaching that a man is disqualified from giving testimony in a Jewish court if he eats while walking in the street. And the question you say is why? There's a deep discussion about this, and I'm going to tell you in a very simple way. You can find this in books, Moral Ethics. Rabbi Victor brings this. This is because eating in public is like an animal. It's like it shows a lack of embarrassment. Person's not embarrassed to not sit at a table. We call ourselves the children of the king. Why would we go walking about Food's completely kosher, everything, but you're walking out in the street. So it's an embarrassment that a person should feel. It should feel, what we would say a busha, to do this in front of people. And if someone has no shame in how they act in public, the rabbis question, how can we trust them that they won't have any shame to lie under an oath? Because embarrassment is that inner moral sensitivity. It's a sign of honesty. So now apply this to this war and to this conflict today. Hamas themselves streamed themselves because they weren't embarrassed to burn babies, to violate women, to slaughter families. Not secretly, not by accident. They filmed it proudly. So if they had no shame in committing these atrocities, think about this. If you don't know what side to be on, listen to what I'm telling you now. If they didn't have any shame, why would they have any shame lying to the world about the scale of attack, about the food shortage, about anything else that's going on? Why would they be ashamed? They've already proven to commit the worst atrocities ever known to man. They're willing to record themselves doing it. How could you believe their testimony? You can't trust the word of someone who isn't even embarrassed to murder someone on camera. So now think back to the story of King Solomon. 2 women come before him. Any person that reads the Bible, they know this. Any person that knows Torah, Navi, the prophets, happens in, I believe it's 1 Kings. The 2 women come before King Solomon. Each of them are claiming to be the mother of a baby. One says that this baby was my baby, and this other woman's trying to steal her baby died, so she took my baby in the middle of the night to pretend as if it was her baby, and now she's saying it's hers. So they go and they bring this case before King Solomon, and he says the famous words, okay, we don't know whose baby it is, so let's do something that's fair. Let's cut the baby in half, and you both take half. So one woman says, fine, that's right, okay, fair enough. The other says, no, let her take the child, just let him live. King of Solomon says, a second one, that's the mother. Give the baby to her. The wisdom of King Solomon. I'm going to apply this to today. In today's conflict, who's willing to cut the baby? Israel has withdrawn, given land, made painful compromises, many peace treaties put on the table. They say, take it. Take this land. Just let us live. And Hamas, Palestinians, by and large, Arabs of this region, they say, kill the baby, blow it up, nuke it even. Why do I say that? There was a video from a influencer, a guy who goes out, he has a YouTube channel. He asks questions, both Israelis and also to Palestinians. I think his name is Corey Gil Schuster, I think it is. And he went and he did a video where he was asking Palestinians if they'd accept a nuclear strike on Israel from Iran, even if it meant that they will all die themselves. The overwhelming majority of these people said yes. They would die as long as Israel died too. So I'm going to ask my audience, whose baby is it? Who's the one crying out for their life? Who's willing to destroy everything just for them to win? You don't need to be Jewish to see the answer. You just need to be human. This is not about borders. This is not about politics. This is about good versus evil. And I will say it over and over again. And if you cannot tell the difference, you are already on the wrong side. To all my listeners, whether you are Jewish, lahavdil, not Jewish, if you're a Christian, Muslims, if you are a seeker of truth, don't let the algorithm choose your morality. Don't let emotional manipulation override your discernment. I beg you, please, please, don't be afraid to stand for what's right, even if it's not what's popular. This world that we live in is upside down, but the Torah still stands right side up. And as for me, I will continue to tell the truth. And I'll keep telling the truth, whether it's trends or whether it doesn't trend. And to all of you, remember, to serve God or live trying.